What if your greatest motivator was also your greatest saboteur? What if the one tool you believe has pushed you to achieve everything is actually the very thing holding you back from real peace and true potential? We are talking about that voice in your head. The one that, after a big presentation, does not say good job, but says you stumbled on slide 3. The one that looks in the mirror and does not see progress, but only flaws. We call it discipline. We call it high standards, but often it is just cruelty. Meet Sarah. Sarah is a successful architect. She works 12-hour days, her projects win awards. To the outside world, she is the picture of success. But inside, Sarah is in a constant state of war. She cannot start a new project without being paralyzed by the fear that it will not be perfect. She never enjoys her success because she's only focused on the next possible failure. That voice in her head, her inner critic, is a relentless master. It tells her this harshness is the reason she is successful. But it is a lie. The truth is, Sarah is burned out, anxious, and secretly feels like an imposter. What if Sarah and you have had it all wrong? What if the key to unlocking sustainable high performance is not self-criticism, but its exact opposite? Something we have often dismissed as weak, lazy, or indulgent. What if the key is self-compassion? In this video, we are not just talking about being nice to yourself. We are breaking down the self-compassion blueprint. We will decode why your brain built this inner sabotage engine in the first place, and we will give you a science-backed 3-stage plan to rebuild it from the ground up. This is not about lowering your standards. This is about building a foundation strong enough to actually meet them. This is the blueprint to being your own ally.
To begin, we need to shatter a massive myth. This is the old paradigm most of us are running on. The old paradigm believes that success is built on rigor. It creates a false equation. Self-criticism equals high standards. Self-compassion equals low standards, laziness, and making excuses. We believe that if we stop whipping ourselves, we will just lie on the couch eating potato chips all day. We believe that inner critic is our personal trainer, screaming at us to run one more mile. But here is the new paradigm, the twist that changes everything. Your inner critic is not your coach. It is your threat response system. Neurologically, self-criticism does not activate the planning and motivation centers of your brain. It activates the amygdala, the fear center. It activates the anterior cingulate cortex, the error detection and pain center. In other words, when you call yourself an idiot for making a mistake, your brain does not hear a coach, it hears a threat. It reacts as if you are being attacked by a predator. It floods you with cortisol. It triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response. You cannot think creatively, learn from your mistakes, or perform complex work when you are in survival mode. Self-criticism does not motivate you, it paralyzes you. So what is self-compassion? Let's be clear what it is not. It is not self-esteem, which is based on feeling better than others. It is not self-indulgence, like shirking responsibility, and it is definitely not an excuse. According to Dr. Kristin Neff, the pioneering researcher in this field, self-compassion has 3 core components. 1. Mindfulness. The ability to recognize, I am suffering right now, without exaggerating or ignoring it. 2. Common humanity. The recognition that suffering and failure are part of the shared human experience. You are not alone. Everyone fails. Everyone feels inadequate. 3. Self-kindness. This is where it gets practical. It is actively treating yourself with the care, support, and understanding that you would offer a close friend who is struggling. Think about it. If your friend failed an exam, would you say, "You're so stupid and worthless, you should just give up"? No. You would say, "That is so tough. I know you tried. Take a breath and then let's look at what happened and make a plan for next time." The new paradigm suggests that applying that same logic to yourself is not weakness. It is the single smartest strategy for resilience. But why does our brain do this? Why do we build an inner sabotage engine if it's so counterproductive? The answer lies deep in our evolutionary wiring.
Your sabotage engine, that inner critic, is not native to you. It was built. It is a faulty protective mechanism forged in childhood. Think of it this way. When we are small, our survival depends on belonging to our tribe, our family, our school. When an adult, a parent, a teacher, criticizes us for spilling milk or getting a bad grade, our young brain learns a vital lesson. To be safe and loved, I must avoid this behavior. To make sure we never make that mistake again, the brain internalizes that critical voice. It creates an internal supervisor. Your inner critic is essentially an old, distorted tape recording of everyone who ever made you feel small or inadequate. The problem is, that protective mechanism was supposed to be temporary, but it never got updated. Now you are a competent adult, but you are still running faulty childhood software that screams at you that spilling milk or making a typo in a work email is a survival-level threat. The machine is built from old parts, old fears, and it is running on overdrive.
Let's go deeper into the neuroscience. When you engage in self-criticism, you activate your defense system. As we mentioned, that is the amygdala, cortisol, and adrenaline. This leads to narrow focus, black and white thinking, and an acute sense of threat. Now, watch what happens when you practice self-compassion. Instead of the amygdala, you activate the left prefrontal cortex. This is the home of positive emotions, optimism, and problem-solving. You are literally shifting from the reactive part of your brain to the thinking part of your brain. More importantly, self-compassion releases oxytocin. This is the bonding or love hormone released when a mother holds your child or when you pet an animal. It has an immediate calming effect, lowering blood pressure and counteracting cortisol. It makes you feel safe, connected, and calm. So, here is the mechanism. Self-criticism is a fire alarm. It screams, "Danger, danger, you are terrible." It makes you freeze or run. Self-compassion is the firefighter. It calmly says, "I see smoke. Let's locate the source. We can handle this." One is panic. The other is problem-solving. Who do you want in charge when you face a challenge?
Now, I know what you were thinking, but if I stop criticizing myself, won't I become lazy? Won't I lose my drive? This is the single biggest skepticism, and it is categorically false. Research by Dr. Neff and others has shown conclusively the opposite. People who are high in self-compassion are not lazier. They are actually more motivated. But here is the key. Their motivation is different. They are driven by intrinsic motivation, the desire to learn, grow, and be well because it is inherently satisfying, not extrinsic motivation, the fear of punishment or the desire for approval. Think about it. Fear is a great motivator for running from a tiger, but it is a terrible motivator for writing a novel or building a business. Self-compassionate people are actually more resilient. Because they are not terrified of failing, they see failure as a learning opportunity, not as proof of their worthlessness. They are more likely to try again after a setback. They demonstrate more of what we call a growth mindset. Self-compassion is not saying, "Oh, it is okay that you failed." Self-compassion is saying, "It is understandable that you failed. That happens. Now, what did you learn, and how can we do better next time?" It's the difference between a coach who screams, "You are garbage," which makes you freeze, and a coach who says, "You missed that shot. Let's analyze why and fix it," which makes you learn.
So what happens when we do not do this? What happens when we let the sabotage engine keep running? We return to Sarah. Her engine is running at 110% fueled by fear of failure, and it is on fire. The real-world impact is not just feeling bad. One is procrastination. Because starting a new project means activating the inner critic, she avoids it. Perfectionism becomes the enemy of completion. Two is her health. The chronic cortisol is destroying her sleep. She is burned out, irritable, and her immune system is compromised. 3 is her relationships. When you are a harsh critic of yourself, that harshness spills onto others. She becomes impatient, judgmental, and isolates herself. The price of the sabotage engine is not high performance. The price is your health, your relationships, and your peace of mind. Sarah is trading her life for an illusion of perfection. We have seen the problem. We understand the mechanism. Now, how do we actually fix it? How does Sarah and how do you rebuild this machine? We need a blueprint.
Welcome to the 3-stage rebuilding blueprint. This is not a light switch. This is an engineering process. We are going to diagnose the current machine, stabilize the system, and then upgrade its core components.
You cannot fix an engine if you do not know where it is broken. We need data. Here is your assignment starting today. For the next 3 days, I want you to run a diagnostic audit. Get a notebook or open a document. Make 2 columns. Column 1, the critical thought. Write down the exact words your inner critic says. You are so stupid. You messed that up again. You do not belong here. Column 2, the emotional fuel. Next to each thought, write down the emotion that is powering it. Is it fear, of failure, of rejection? Is it shame, feeling inherently broken? This exercise is not about judgment. It is about data collection. You are mapping the wiring of the old machine. Just observe. For Sarah, her log fills up fast. Submitted project 1 day late. Fuel. Fear they will think I am incompetent. Stumbled on a word in the meeting. Fuel. Shame that I looked stupid. After 3 days, you will have a clear blueprint of how your sabotage engine operates. You have the data, but the engine is still overheating. When you fall into a shame spiral or an anxiety attack, when the critic is screaming, you need an immediate safety switch. We are going to use a powerful biological tool, popularized by Dr. Andrew Huberman, the physiological sigh. It works like this: 2 sharp, fast inhales through your nose, and 1 long, slow exhale through your mouth. Let's do it together. In, through the nose, out, through the mouth. Here is why it works. When you are stressed, the little air sacs, alveoli in your lungs collapse. That double inhale reinflates them, allowing for maximum oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. The long exhale activates your vagus nerve, your body's emergency brake system. It immediately slows your heart rate and pulls you out of the fight or flight response. This is Sarah's stabilization step. When she feels panic rising before a deadline, she does not try to think positive. She goes to the bathroom, takes 3 physiological sighs, and stabilizes her nervous system. Only then can she move to the next step. Now that the machine is stable, it is time to upgrade the hardware. We are replacing 2 faulty components. Upgrade 1. Replace the perfectionism filter with the 85% filter. The old engine runs on a perfectionism filter. It believes anything less than 100% is a total failure. This is paralyzing. We are installing the 85% filter. Instead of striving for an impossible 100% perfection and often ending up with 0% due to procrastination, you commit to a consistent 85%. 85% is still a B+. It is still high-quality work, but it allows for humanity. It allows you to get the thing done, get feedback, and iterate. For Sarah, this was a game changer. She started submitting drafts at 85%, which she called high-quality drafts, instead of agonizing for weeks to get to a mythical 100%. She got more done, and, ironically, her work got better because she was getting feedback sooner. Upgrade 2. Change the fuel source from achievement to core values. The old machine runs on a very volatile fuel, achievement and external validation. The problem is, you do not control that fuel source. One criticism, one failure, and your tank is empty. We need a clean, stable, internal fuel source, your core values. Ask yourself, who do you want to be? Creative, curious, courageous, persistent, honest? When Sarah changed her fuel source, everything shifted. Instead of starting a project thinking, how do I get approved? She started by thinking, how can this project be an expression of my value of creativity? When your motivation comes from expressing your values, which you fully control, instead of achieving a result which you do not, the inner critic loses its power. It has no fuel to burn. Diagnose, stabilize, upgrade. That is the blueprint.
Let's check in on Sarah one last time. 6 months later, the engine is not screaming anymore. It is humming. She still has high standards, but they are fueled by a desire to express her creativity, not a fear of being exposed. When she makes a mistake, that old tinny voice sometimes whispers, but now she has a new, calmer voice. That voice notices the error, uses a physiological sigh to stay calm, and asks, okay, what did we learn? How can the 85% filter help us fix this? Sarah stopped being her own prison guard. She became her own architect. She stopped being her own worst critic and started being her own greatest ally. This is the journey we have been on. We saw that self-criticism is not a coach, but a faulty alarm system. We learned that self-compassion is not weakness, but a neurological resilience mechanism powered by oxytocin. And we laid out a 3-step blueprint to rebuild that machine. Diagnose by logging the thoughts, stabilize with the physiological sigh, and upgrade with the 85% filter and a core values fuel source. You have lived in that war for long enough. You are tired enough. Your first action, your point B, is to start that 3-day diagnostic. Just watch. Do not judge. Collect the data. To help you, we have created a free downloadable PDF, the Inner Ally Diagnostic Sheet, that walks you through this exact exercise. The link is in the description. The journey out of self-criticism is not a battle, it is a construction project. You're not destroying the old part of you, you are building a new, stronger part right beside it. Stop being your own worst critic. It is time to start being your own most steadfast ally.